Welcome, everyone. We are in February 2027. The year is only just begun. We're having an awesome time. Jeff Boats is returning today. He has book two out in the Thomas Vale series, and he's going to read a little bit of that for us today. Welcome back, Jeff. I'm glad you could make it.
It's good to be here. It's kind of a big week for me.
It is a big week. It's your birthday week.
Yesterday,
It's the release of your brand new book that
also
just
yesterday.
released yesterday. So you have a lot of fun stuff going on.
Uh, I just
Uh,
turned 53, a full deck and plus one joker.
I like the plus one Joker part. That's fun. Um, Also, one of the memorable things when I first met you, you gave me a poker chip, which I still have. It's still sitting right here on my desk.
Yeah,
It's very fun.
the main character of my series, at least for the first three books anyway, Thom Vale, he's an amateur poker player, so that was my little gimmick for being memorable. I give out these poker chips with my first two book covers on either side.
I think it's a great idea. It ties in really well to the book, and people hang on to it. Like I said, I still have mine.
Cool.
And that's almost 2 years now
Just
I've
just
had
don't take
it.
it to a
So,
casino, you'll get me in trouble.
nah, I wouldn't do that. Wouldn't do that. So, remind us a little bit about the Thomas Vale series. Thomas Vale is Homeland Security,
Uh-huh.
CIA recruit, but he's also on the autistic spectrum.
Yeah, that makes him different. He's a different kind of smart action hero. He's on the autism spectrum, like me, and he struggles with his sensory issues. He is very smart, very focused, and he is about as un-James Bond as you can get, which is what makes it fun, giving him these spy missions. Uh,
Absolutely.
in the first book, as you know, he uh, took down uh, a terrorist financing operation with the help of a female James Bond. And spoiler alert, obviously he survives book one because here he is in book two again.
Right, exactly.
And this book is set a year later, where now he's a little bit more established, and he's conducting his own investigation into a domestic terrorist cell. And the trail leads him back toward where he grew up and gives him an opportunity to hopefully, to try to get back in touch with his estranged father who never really understood him. And part of the mystery in this one is the long lost love of his childhood, her name is Lindsay, is missing and presumed dead. And in the excerpt I'm going to read, this is where Thomas and his fiancee Marina are going back before the investigation starts just to visit uh, Lindsay's family, the Red Houses, Lindsay Redhouse and her family, and hopefully get back in touch with his estranged father. And the plan, of course, is for Marina to then go off while Thom conducts his investigation. Uh, and I won't spoil
This
too much about what happens, but
No, no, please don't spoil it because
no,
the whole point here is for us to get a little taste and then go out and find the book and enjoy it
yeah, but
on
this is
on that slow burn, curl up with a cup of cocoa and read kind of thing.
yeah, but
So
this
for
is going to be.
anybody, I'm sorry, go
Well, I
ahead.
was about to say this is a more emotional ride than the first book because of the situation of romance, with his fiance and this girl he knew from his childhood. It's going to tug on the heartstrings when he tries to have a relationship with his father, who never got him. All that infused within a very fast-moving action story.
That's
I'm
it's really cool how you're able to balance those elements. So before we start your reading, and we'll talk a little bit more after the reading, but before you start, I want to remind our listeners that there is a listener advisory for this book. So strong language, mature situations, and violence. So if you have little ears nearby, you might want to preview this episode before you share it with them, just to be on the safe side. We want to make sure that everybody knows what they're reading before we begin. So, Jeff, when you are ready, please take the microphone and read aloud from Crying Call, Book Two in the Thomas Vale series.
Okay. As Diana said, I don't think there's anything too bad actually about this excerpt, but I'm glad you gave the disclaimer because, this is a spy novel, essentially.
Right.
So
And
when,
we don't censor on this program. We just give you the information and let the listener make the decision.
Yeah, cool. When people come up to my booths at places and ask me, is this appropriate for their kids? I tell them, if you would be okay with them watching a James Bond movie, all right, toss in a few salty words, and that's about what I'm writing. So,
Perfect. That's a great description.
yeah. So I have had teenagers enjoy the book, so including a couple of my kids.
Awesome.
So, all right. I'm going to read from this is chapter 10 out of about 39, I think, about a quarter of the way in. And Thomas is going with his fiancee Marina to visit the Red Houses, uh, the mother of the long lost friend of his childhood who is missing and presumed dead. Lindsay is missing. Chapter 10, Condolence. We arrived at the Red Houses' home just after 2 o'clock. A whistling wind from the north turned the misty rain into tiny snowflakes, swirling about us as they fell, melting the moment they landed. The clouds of our breaths preceded us as we stepped out of my rental car, a gray Ford Fiesta. Marina walked through the last puff of exhaust as she came around the car. An old chain link fence ran around the yard's perimeter. The grass looked like it could use one more cut before winter. A cracked and tilted sidewalk ran up to a bare porch. Place needs a coat of paint, Marina said as we passed through the fence gate. The white paint had cracked and peeled over much of the siding and looked as though it had been that way for a while. Lots of folks around here worry more about the inside of the house than the outside, I said. Harsh winters. I stepped over a dog's chew toy as we climbed the porch steps and rang the doorbell. Our welcome began with a throaty barking and scratching of paws on hardwood, then linoleum, and then finally the door itself. Thanks for coming with me, I said. Marina smiled curtly, but without her eyes. Over her shoulder, I noticed a puff of exhaust from the back of a distant blue sedan. It was parked in the road in front of the house with an empty driveway. Its windows were slightly tinted, hiding its driver and any passengers. Marina winced, noticing me observing something. She turned around to look, but then immediately turned back as the doorknob jiggled. The door swung inward, and I crouched down to embrace an old beagle as it sprinted out to pounce on me. The black portions of his fur were tinted gray now, but the excitement in his eyes were the same as I'd known when he was a puppy. I scratched him behind the ears. Hello, Arrow. Long time no sniff. Thomas Vale, as I live and breathe. It's been way too long, Naoki, came a voice from behind the door. I looked up to see Lindsay's mother smiling at me. You must have a lot of stories to tell since last time. I stood and looked at her and couldn't find any words. Tears welled in my eyes as I stood and beheld. A few more lines on the face, a few more liver spots on the hands, but Mrs. Ridhouse's smile and warm eyes were the same. I was drawn forward by some invisible force into a firm hug, one of my tears falling on her shoulder. She hugged me tightly and patted me on the back. I've missed you, Mom. Naogi, Naogi, you haven't changed a bit, have you? Big boy, big feelings. I forgot how tall you are. Come in now, let's have a look at you. I walked in, trying not to trip over Arrow as he nuzzled my shins. Waves of warmth and the aroma of burning sage welcomed us. The fireplace was alive with crackling flames that made patterns of light dance on the wood-paneled chalet ceiling. This is my fiancée, Marina. Marina stepped forward and said hello, and moments later she found herself in just as tight a hug. Over Mrs. Redhouse's shoulder, Marina shot me a quick glance with amused eyes. You're Tom's mother? No, not really, Mrs. Redhouse said, chuckling and releasing the embrace. He just always calls me Mom. And this is Grandma, I said, turning toward an old woman who sat in a plush chair next to the fireplace. A thick blanket with patterns of the Turtle Clan lay across her lap. How old was she now? At least 90. Only 2 decades ago, she'd still been young enough to attend every baseball and softball game Lindsay played, relentlessly giving grief to the poor, unsuspecting umpires. Grandma set her knitting needles down, and I approached and knelt before her. Her skin was darkened and weathered with age, her mouth shriveled and wrinkled, but the 90-year-old woman's eyes danced with joyful youth. Nigazde Nyogi, she said, almost too quietly to hear, while tussling my hair. Good boy. I'm Ruth, and she's called Rebecca, Mom said to Marina, but just call her Grandma, okay? Okay, Mom, Marina said, which earned her another fierce hug. It made my heart sing to see Mom embracing Marina. I'd always been welcome here and always would be, and I saw that that extended to anyone I called a friend. This is my other mother, I explained. Even before my real mother died, Mom was always there for me, and well, that's just how I think of her. Well, sit down, you two, Mom said, ushering us to the couches. I'll make some tea, and you'll tell me absolutely everything about your lives. There was no point arguing, even if we'd wanted to. I sat next to Marina and took her hand in mine. She seemed more at ease, with a hint of a smile on her lips. Mom's medicine was still strong. I glanced over at Grandma, whose squinting smile at the sight of our hand holding elicited a giggle, although at her age it came out as a half cackle. The living room was much the same as I remembered. The hardwood floor was mostly covered with thick area rugs. An old hand-carved wooden rack above the fireplace held 3 hunting rifles and Lindsay's composite bow. A quiver of arrows lay on the fireplace mantel, all with bright red fletching. Arrow, recovered from the excitement of our arrival, settled into a bearskin rug in the far corner of the room and gnawed on a bone-shaped treat. A wall of bookshelves stood behind him. Not a television in the house. Instead, comfortable chairs, reading lamps, and more blankets than could easily be counted. A quiet sanctuary of knowledge. A library with love and acceptance on its shelves. "They're so nice," Marina whispered to me, and I nodded and squeezed her hand gently. I could hear Mom fussing over the kitchen stove, and I knew exactly what she was doing, even though she was out of sight. From my vantage, I could see a wall of framed photographs next to the dining room table. I was about to get up and bring Marina to see them when Mom returned from the kitchen with a tray and 4 steaming mugs. "How did you meet? When did you know you were in love? When's the wedding? Tell me everything you love about each other and don't spare me the details," and blah, blah, blah. Mom was relentless. Because of course she was. That's what a mom does, right? Marina was a good sport, no doubt because of how warmed and welcome she felt. We talked for the better part of an hour, and all the while my heart grew closer and closer to bursting. Because as much as I loved Lindsay's mother, and as much as I felt warm and safe and loved in her presence, the more it made me ache for my own mother. She had died in a car accident when I was 14, along with my big brother Matt. It should have been her interrogating my fiance, asking all the awkward, embarrassing questions, making Marina feel loved and accepted and completely uncomfortable. And my brother should be there too, patting me on the back while mercilessly making fun of me, teasing me relentless, and then later standing up as my best man. Where were they? Buried in the cemetery 2 lots down the street from my home, that's where. None of these things could ever be, never ever again. Gone, robbed of me, just like Lindsay had now been robbed of me, ripped from the earth and straight out of my soul. 60 minutes in, I couldn't take it anymore, and my head fell into my lap. My hands covered my twisting facial expressions and convulsive despair. At some point, Marina's hand was on my shoulder, and I distantly became aware that all conversation around me had stopped. "Maybe we should talk later," Mom said. "You came here for Lindsay." "I'm here to honor her," I said, sputtering through tears. "I need to pay my respects." Mom stood and beckoned us to follow her, through the kitchen and out the mudroom door. The backyard was unfenced and vast, stretching out as far as the distant woods. Lindsay's straw archery target stood far in the distance near the tree line, and beyond that lay tall hills of thick woods, her childhood playground. Lindsay's greenhouse stood not far from her house. Since before I'd known her, she'd spent time in the greenhouse every day looking for a wide variety of plants and learning their properties. I remembered a few occasions where I'd visited her after school and walked around the greenhouse with her as she watered certain plants on certain days, but not others. There was some pattern or another, and she knew it and would talk about it. None of it had ever registered with me because I've never really been paying attention to her lectures. It was always Lindsay who had my attention, not some dumb plants. Mom led us to the greenhouse, past the greenhouse, and toward a large fire pit. The pit's base was black from many previous fires, but a new pyre of woven twigs and branches stood in its center. "You couldn't be here for the condolence ceremony, but I thought you might like to have your own," Mom said. She bent over the pit and lit some leaves and small twigs with a Zippo lighter. She blew on it a bit, dissipating the smoke and helping the flame catch. In less than a minute, the flames grew enough to catch, and the pyre began to blaze. Mom stepped toward me and looked me in the eye. I had difficulty maintaining the eye contact, but I did it for Lindsay. Mom had only one thing to say, her palm flat upon my chest, her voice quivering. "She loved you too. Take as much time as you need." And with that, Mom walked back toward the house. The flames rose higher, and the crackling and hissing of the splintering wood grew louder. It was up to me now, me and all my pent-up feelings from a lifetime of feeling love without understanding it. I took Marina's hand in mine, but I couldn't look her in the eyes. I could barely keep them open. The crackling of the fire, the wind blowing against me, and the feel of tiny snowflakes landing on my face and melting and evaporating. Marina's hand, Mother Earth below, the Great Spirit above. What's a condolence ceremony? Marina asked. It's the ceremony her loved ones held to mark her passing, I answered. As I stared into the fire, I told Marina about the sky world. The condolence ceremony was meant to help Lindsay on her journey. Her family sang sacred songs and lit a sacred fire. They talked about her, talked to her, said the things they needed to say to her into the fire. They wrote letters to her, placed them in the fire, maybe along with some personal objects. They told stories of her and rejoiced in them. On the 10th day, they held a feast and set a place for her, a spirit meal. Lindsay's spirit was lifted up that night by the knowledge that so many had cared for her. Their love lifted her up the highest mountain, and then along the path of the Milky Way, and then finally to the sky world, where she was welcomed by her ancestors and became one with the Great Spirit. And I had missed it. All of it. The flames leapt higher than our heads as my body shook with passion and despair. Marina's hand in mine could barely keep me anchored to reality as the leaping flames mesmerized me. She moved with me as I slowly, very slowly, walked clockwise around the pit. I don't have anything for the fire. What do you mean? To send her, Marina, I said with my chest heaving and the weight of guilt and sorrow. I don't have anything, a note or a gift. I don't have anything. It's okay, Thom. Lindsay's gone and I didn't help her. Thom, it's okay. It's going to be fine, Marina said, pressing her body close to mine. Her embrace was the only thing stopping my body from shaking itself to pieces. She kept talking to me, but I didn't hear her. The fire rose and danced before me, and my eyes shifted with it, danced with it, pulled me into it. Tears poured from my eyes, blurring my vision as strange shapes formed in the fire, some of them memories. I saw Lindsay sitting on a mat, 5 years old, listening to our kindergarten teacher read us a story before nap time. She was wide-eyed, playing with one of her pigtails. Beautiful. Lindsay was 11 years old, running through a cornfield ahead of me so fast I couldn't keep the pace. Lindsay the rabbit. A red feather earring fluttered behind her right ear as she ran and laughed, telling me I'd better keep up or else. So beautiful. Lindsay and I were 13 years old, lying on our backs at the top of Eagle's Hill, hoping my brother wouldn't climb up and interrupt us. We were looking at the stars. I pointed out my favorite constellation, Orion, explaining that he was a hunter like her. She smiled. So very, very beautiful. Lindsay was playing catch before her high school softball game. The star of her team. She looked over at me in the stands and saw me watching her. She winked at me, and my heart stopped. Lindsay and I were grown-ups in some sort of science lab? I don't remember this. And an expression of profound relief came over her face as she threw herself into my arms, saying words I couldn't quite make out. Thom, are you there? I snapped out of it and wiped tears from my face. The fire had died down a bit, but was still bright and giving off heat. Kind of lost you for a while, Marina said. Sorry, I was someplace else. I think Mom wants us to come in. I looked up and saw Mom waving at us. I wiped my face. Do I look all right? I asked. Thom, it's okay, she said, holding me. You're grieving. It's okay. I've got you. Marina leaned in and kissed me, but I was too stunned to kiss her back. The cold of the wind, the brightness of the fire, and the flame-swept visions dancing in my mind. I found myself leaning on Marina a little bit as she escorted me back into the house. So that's chapter 10.
Another really intense scene. I'm really impressed with the First Nations medicine that you write into this story. Where did you find your research for that?
Wherever I could. The first thing I did is what I normally do is I try to talk to any expert I can find on the subject. And I was always honest about the fact that I am not a Native American. I'm not an indigenous person. And what I discovered was people were very friendly with me and understanding, But the moment they realized I wasn't an indigenous person, they didn't really want to talk to me anymore about certain ceremonies, including this one. And I respected that. I never pushed them. I say that in my acknowledgments that, you know, I wanted to portray this as accurately as I could. I wanted to
Right.
portray indigenous culture in a positive way as much as I could. And I sincerely apologize if I failed or crossed the line I shouldn't have. But this was integral to the story, so I couldn't not do it. I mean,
Well, and
I
I think there's a level of honor in that, right? I personally have known two First Nations shamans and participated in some of the medicine. I've done sweat lodges, vision questing, that kind of thing. So I understand how it's important to get the details right.
yeah, but
And if you can't get all the details, it's just as important to be honorable and acknowledge that maybe you might have missed something in translation. So I
yeah.
think that that's a good thing to do.
Well, I hope I didn't get it wrong, and I know for a fact I didn't betray any secrets. That was important to me
Hmm.
too,
Yes,
because when they wouldn't talk to me, I didn't stop my research. I just read and read and read as much as I could.
sure.
So, because I wasn't not going to make the character Haudenosaunee, right? She's a member of the Seneca Nation, which is part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy of New York, Pennsylvania, that area.
Okay. Okay.
And it was integral to the plot, and I had to do it. I felt like, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to Shakespeare, but to not write an Indian or Native American character just because I'm not Native American is like telling Shakespeare, well, you shouldn't have written Hamlet because you've never been to Denmark. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you 100%.
You
And
know,
and I think that it's part of our jobs as authors to show those different faces of humanity. I
yeah,
think that's important. So, speaking of faces of humanity, we spoke at the beginning of both this episode and the last time you were on the program about how you are also on the autism spectrum.
I am, and
So,
and
how much of Jeff Boats is in Thomas Vale?
well, he has my academic background, which makes sense because write what you know.
Hmm.
But personality-wise, honestly, you know, I think personality-wise, what comes out from me into Thom are certain minor traumas of my childhood, being bullied or having bad things happening,
Hmm.
and having the repressed feelings of someone who doesn't emote, because autistic people, especially high masking ones like me, are actually very, very emotional people. But we don't
That's
emote,
very clear to me.
but we don't emote very frequently. Usually
Okay.
we look like we're just brick walls to people sometimes. But but the emotion runs deep, like Mrs. Redhouse says, big boy, big feelings. You
Hmm.
know. So, but personality wise, honestly, I'm probably personality wise more like that female James Bond from book one. Her name was Sandra, and we didn't really talk about her when I was on before. By the way, those are my university tower chimes going on behind me. I don't know if you can hear that.
Can't, but that's very cool.
Oh yeah, the the clock just rang back there.
Right.
But yeah, I'm a lot more like her, honestly, in a lot of ways. But some of it comes out in Thomas. I think like a lot of authors, every character I really care about, there's some of me in there. You know?
Yeah. No, I think that's true. Every character I write, there's a little piece of me in it. I think we need to do that as authors to remain authentic to the piece we're writing.
Yeah. And you
Um,
gotta, like I said before, you gotta, in the last time, you gotta be vulnerable. You gotta be willing to show more of yourself than you'd normally be comfortable with. In this book, I'm proud of myself in this book because I think I really bled on the page a few places in this. I tell you, if you can get through this book without shedding a tear, you don't have a soul. I don't want to know you.
yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna get you somewhere. I promise.
Perfect. Okay, last question. What is the biggest darling that you killed in this book? And by that, I mean to say, in our vernacular as writers, our darlings are the things we want to hang on to really badly, but we know that for the good of the story, we have to let them go. And maybe they'll appear in a different book, or maybe they'll just live in the darling file forever. So, what
Oh, good
was
question.
with this book? What was the biggest darling that you had to let go?
Oh, what a good question. And the audience is now going to know by my umming and ahhing that I was not ready for this one.
Well,
When
that's part of why I do what I do, because
when I
it's
write a
more
book,
fun to get you like this.
I am a the whole plotter pantser thing. I
Mm.
am a plotter squared. Plot, plot, plot. I begin with a
Yeah,
draft
I
zero.
personally identify as a passionate plotter. So,
Uh,
yeah.
my draft zero for my first book was 28,000 words. My
Holy
draft
moly.
zero for this one was 15,000.
Yeah.
And I don't like the idea of having to kill darlings or do a lot of structural editing later. So I outline to death till I know exactly everything that's going to connect to everything through the whole thing. I mean, you could almost read my draft zero like it was a story. So, did I kill a lot of darlings? Not really. I
Is there
think
one that stands out that you really had to say, okay, this one has to go on the chopping block? We have to set this one aside. Maybe it'll come up at another time.
nothing is really leaping to mind. I think if I killed a darling, it was during the outlining phase where I'm just throwing ideas around to try to explain this, that, or the other thing. And then, I'll come up with something better and toss something out. But once I've got that outline down, I pretty much, that's how it's going to be. I don't really
I
take out
my
big efforts.
my heart is so warmed to hear that you're a plotter because I've interviewed so few plotters on this program. It's really nice to have you on my side of that line.
Oh, well, thank you. My style of writing, you're going to see there's going to be lots of little Easter eggs and clues and stuff like that, where in the end, it's not like a Scooby-Doo ending, but I do have the tendency to want everything to start to come together. Like something you'll see in chapter three that you
Yeah,
might go, that's kind of interesting. Huh, whatever. I don't, and then it will matter later. That's why I put it in chapter three. And
right.
it was, I knew it from the outline phase that that was going to be important.
Yep, I do exactly the same thing. I think it's more fun to write that way.
Yeah.
It certainly makes the editing process, I think, more fun
Oh,
because then you get to connect those dots and weave those things together.
yeah. And I think that's
That's
just,
the fun part for me.
I think that's just good mystery writing. I set out to write thrillers because, my dad loves smart action heroes and I'm just trying to please him really.
Hmm.
But, I like the mystery element of it. And I think you've got to sprinkle the clues in.
Sure.
It's for a good mystery. When you get to the end, they should have had the chance. They should have had the chance to figure it out before.
I love that. They should have had the chance. I really love that. That's
Don't make it
very cool.
easy. But
That's
but
very cool.
so if they go back and read it the second time, every other chapter they're going to be like, oh,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
that thing. Jeff, I'm so glad you came on the program. Congratulations on your new release. I'm really excited for you, and I look forward to more writing from you in the future.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm slaving away.
Well, as I said before, you are welcome back anytime, sir. Have an awesome day and happy birthday.
Thanks.